consider the possibility that you might need multiple locations per client. So most of the time, SEOs will use the front door or the parking lot of the business they're doing SEO for, but sometimes it's also good to do their home address since they might check your work from home. So you want to know what they're seeing from there too.
Okay.
And they may have, best markets like, this neighborhood gives us 80% of our business and this other neighborhood we want to be in, but we're not. And so you might figure out, their various markets and have a location for each one.
Let's say this client's in Dallas, but I have another client in Houston, my big client. He's got the top 10 affluent areas, so I could just do a GPS.
Yeah, and each one and see how it is when somebody searches from those areas.
See what I got to do.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. All right, so let's go back to Cora and let's go to settings. And let's go to domain lists. And here in this track tab, put in the domain name of your local client that we're going to create an example report for.
You would ask that.
Yeah, feel free to look it up. There's no rush. I don't have a meeting after this, so we can run long if we need.
Look it up on this other computer, see if I can type it in.
And we can repeat this, by the way, so don't panic that you weren't recording. If we need to do the training twice, we'll do it.
All right. Let me see if it'll come up. Just on, oh, here it is right here. Where's the website? I've got it.
Might be at the top usually. There it is.
It's right there. So we want to do what now?
Go to settings.
I'm in. Oh, I thought we were in settings.
And domain lists. And let's paste that in, but we'll have to edit it because we only want the domain name. So we'll delete the trailing slash and we'll delete the https://www. Yeah, and there's one more dot at the beginning there. Yeah, perfect. And so that's what we do. And what we're doing here is we're telling Cora, this is one of the websites we want recommendations for. So if you see this website in the search results, automatically select it for me so I don't have to hunt for it. And so setting your track domains will save you a bunch of time and hassle. So now what we can do is you see the search engine select box that says Google.
Yeah.
That's for national terms. We want to do local. So let's change that select box so it says Google Maps.
Here?
Yep.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right. And when you do a normal Google search, you can use that city state field to localize. And a normal Google search will completely ignore the latitude and longitude. But when you're doing a map search for local SEO, it'll ignore the city state field and it'll only use the latitude and longitude. So that city state field and lat long, only one of them is ever in use at a time, and Google Maps always uses the latitude and longitude.
Okay.
All right, so now we can enter in a keyword for search terms over on the right.
phrase or?
No, you see at the top where it says search terms? There you go.
All right. So he wants to rank for hardwood floors or installation. He's
Mhm.
already ranking for um, repairs and
All right. Well, let's see if he shows up in the search results. So we'll hit search. All right. So we find him in number 2. He wants to be number 1. So if we want to do this analysis, we would then hit the get data button at the top.
get data button at the top.
Looks like a play button on a VCR.
All right. So you're saying right now he's number 2.
Yeah, found him there. See him highlighted in the result table?
Yeah, I see it. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
drill
yeah.
down on it a little bit before I go to get data.
If you want to do a harder keyword that he's not already ranking so well for, we can switch it up.
So he is on the first page, number 2. What
Yeah.
what will happen if he wants to redo his website? He thinks it needs to be redone. Um, will it tank?
It can. Web redesigns are the number one way people wreck their SEO. And usually the reason it wrecks the SEO is whatever redesign they do forces a change in all the URLs. And
Oh,
changing even so much as a single character in the URL makes it a whole new URL.
whole new, brand new page. Yep.
Yeah, and to Google, your permanent record is based on your exact URL. And so everything about you that Google knows, your reputation, your credibility, your relevance, everything is that URL. So when you change a URL for an already existing page, you're throwing away your permanent record.
Unless you go in and do a 301 or 302 redirect.
Exactly. But when you do that, redirects count as a new layer of linking.
Oh,
Google treats them like it's another layer deep, and each layer of linking doesn't pass through 100% of the authority. So you're
oh,
probably losing 30% for each layer of linking. So you're
oh.
just diminishing your previous SEO by 30% to get a new URL.
All
And
right.
and so it's really bad, and so many businesses redesign every 2 years, and it's nerve-wracking. The only way you can do it well is if the new website uses exactly the same URLs that the old website had. If you can keep the URLs exactly the same, you can minimize that calamity.
Okay. All right.
Um,
So getting back on track. We'll go get the data.
yeah, let's run it. All right, so Cora has two primary purposes. So its first function is it's going to analyze all of the web results and figure out which factors appear to be factors. So it's going to run stats and do measurements and say these are the factors that correlate with rank position and these other factors don't. And so we're finding the list of likely suspects mathematically. And then the second function, once Cora has figured out the factors that appear to matter, is we're going to look at your competitors and we're going to tell you exactly how much of those important factors you're short compared to those competitors. And so the reason that Cora tends to work so well is we're giving you the concentrate of the places that you're different from higher ranking competitors that you're short in those areas. And so we're giving you the ability to have better data driven, educated guesses. And so the way I like to look at it is, there's 4,000 different things you can work on as an SEO. We're going to try to reduce it down to the 2 or 3 dozen likely suspects, and then you can pick and choose from the likely suspects. And so by narrowing the field down to the important stuff, the things you guess to work on tend to have a better success rate. Make sense?
Of course.
All right. So the next thing that's going to happen is Cora's going to make this massive report, and there's going to be tons of sheets and
I see that.
thousands of rows of data, and people get overwhelmed, and that's totally natural. It's usually when they open up the spreadsheet for the first time and click around, that's when they go for the eject button. Get me out of here. It's math and data and numbers, and people run for the hills. But the thing is, I only want you to really master one report. The roadmap report is broken into phases, and if you can master just the first 4 phases, you'll be doing 90% of what everybody else is doing to just hit home runs in SEO. And so I only want you to really work on the roadmap sheet. I want you to spend 95% of your time on that sheet and only on the first 4 phases. Everything else in Cora is reference material in the event you need to dig deeper. So if you're spending too much time in all the other data, you're doing it wrong. And those first 4 phases in Cora, they're designed with a purpose. So phase 1 is going to be your quick win phase. It's going to largely deal with titles, headings, and meta descriptions. And it's designed to get you a quick boost in ranking to hopefully buy you the time and goodwill from the client to work on the harder SEO that's going to take longer. Then in phase 2, you're going to actually go toe to toe with the amount of content your competitors are using. So the numbers get bigger. Phase 2 is going to slow you down. And it's typically in the middle of phase 2 that you hit a wall with Google. And it's the most common problem in SEO. Like all SEOs hit this problem, and I don't know why more people don't talk about it, but what ends up happening is you start tuning your on page and you get to say number 50, and you tune your on page some more and you get to 25, and you tune it some more and you're still at 25, and you tune it the most you ever have, and sure enough, you're at 25. And it's like everything that was working great before just magically stopped working. It no longer works, and nobody understands why. And what we think that is a web spam algorithm called MC4.
Right.
And what MC4 says is if you exploit a minority of factors, that Google should ignore those factors just for your page. So the way MC4 plays out is you're tuning your on page, and the algorithm says, I see what you did there. I'm going to give you a little ranking boost. And so you do some more on page, and the algorithm says, I see that you did a little more, so I'm going to give you a little more. So you do some more on page, and the algorithm says, hey, wait a second, you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. I'm not going to give you any more for that. So that's how the MC4 algorithm plays out. And it happens with off page too. It's, I build some backlinks. The algorithm says I'll give you a boost. So I do some more backlinks. It says I'll give you a little more boost. So I do 50,000 backlinks, and boom, my website's gone. The only difference between those two examples is that with the backlinks, we took it to an extent where the algorithm said, hey, it's not that I'm not going to give you any more additional score. It's that you took it so far, I'm just not going to give you score for that factor. And when you don't have score for backlinks, you fall out of search. And then it's usually at those times where people go to Signals Lab and various SEO groups and they say, hey, my page fell out of search. I got 50,000 backlinks. What happened? And people start shaming you. They say 50,000 backlinks was a dumb number of backlinks to get, and you're over optimized, and you have a penalty, and you need to disavow your backlinks, and you need to do link removal
Which
requests.
is all bullshit.
Yeah, you need to detune your page, you need to prune your content, you need to prune your pages, and all of that is the exact wrong response for an MC4 algorithmic demotion. Because to get unstuck with MC4, you have to go back to the definition. If you exploit a minority of factors.
Right.
So don't exploit a minority. You exploit all of them, you rank well.
Right. You got to do more, not
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, and that's why we try to teach people to go wide in ranking signals before they ever go deep in any one signal. Because when you go wide with a diverse amount of different ranking signals, Google lets you get away with more shenanigans. And this is why for years we've been asking for people to tell us a threshold that Google will punish for over optimization. And every time somebody says something, oh, if you exceed 2.5% keyword density, Google will punish you. If you use your exact match 500 times, Google will punish you. If you get 50,000 backlinks, Google will punish you. Well, it turns out that no matter what limit they set, we can find websites on page 1 of Google that violate those limits.
Yep.
And so there has to be a reason why they can do it and you can't. And it turns out there is a reason they can do it and you can't. And it looks like that reason is factor diversity.
Yep.
And so, yeah, we use the phases to deal with this problem. So it's just a framework for dealing with MC4. And you'll hear it when you get new clients in the door. So a new client will come in and they'll say, yeah, we had an SEO guy and it was working great. Like, we were moving up for a while and then it all stopped working. And so we had to let him go. And they're telling you their MC4 story that they got stuck and they're currently stuck. And so in the Cora report and that roadmap, phase 1 and 2 are designed to get you stuck, shooting for rankings. Phases 3 and 4 are designed to get you unstuck. So when you hear that story, oh, our client got good results for a while and then that stopped, so we let them go. Oh, they triggered MC4. They're coming to us in a stuck state. We need to get them unstuck. That means we start in phases 3 and 4 to get unstuck, and then we go back to phases 1 and 2 to continue ranking.
So you would run the report, skip 1 and 2, and go to 3 and 4 first.
Yeah, if they're coming to you in a stuck state, then get them unstuck first and then resume ranking. And so it's just this dance of let's do phases 1 and 2. Oh, it seems to have stopped working. Oh, well, let's do some 3 and 4. All right, 2-3 weeks go by after 3 and 4. Let's go back to 1 and 2. And you just keep ping-ponging between those two modes and you just climb up and up and up, because every time you diversify, Google lets you get away with more of the shenanigans.
Right.
All right. And so when this report finishes, we'll show you how to tune for those things. We'll look at the phases, we'll look at the other sheets that let you solve these problems, and we'll talk about doing the tuning.
Okay.
This is almost done. It's creating the reports now.
Okay, cool. So it didn't take a whole lot of time.
Yeah, it depends on how many cores your system has and how fast your internet is. So I've seen people run it on high core systems and they can produce Cora reports in as fast as 30 seconds. And
Oh, wow.
but for the most of us who are on 4 or 8 core systems, typically it's 3 to 15 minutes somewhere in there.
Right. Incredible. I mean, it's just overwhelming, Ted. I mean, I just,
Well, the cool thing about this is once you're comfortable with working with the data and tuning for the deficits, it's so quantified you could almost turn it into a rate sheet. You run a report, you can estimate how much time it's going to take you, you can decide what you'd want to cost for that amount of work.
right.
It's pretty cool being able to see that up front, and it definitely changes my audits. Like every audit I do, I'm running the volatility tool looking for volatility problems, and I'm running the core report and reporting on what I find in phases 1 through 4. And I'll do that for their most important pages and showing them what we need to do on each page to improve it and what problems we might find. And so, yeah, it definitely changes, the detail of the audits I do.
Well, let me ask you this. I know you know it, and I'm not questioning you. I'm already sold on the service. It's just how have you proven doing the roadmap that it works?
Well, I do it all the time, and we have a whole community of people who are doing it all the time. And ultimately, the most important proof is that we help you prove it for yourself, because
Oh,
there's literally nothing I can say that will be as compelling as you did it yourself.
yeah. And we see the movement.
Yeah,
And you're saying typically it's 2 days to,
Yeah, when you do the on-page stuff, it's in the business profile stuff, it can be as fast as the next morning. So the end
oh,
of the day, you request indexing and Search Console. Next morning, typically, if there's going to be rank improvement, it'll usually be there when you wake up. The only exception to that is if Google is rolling out a massive update, then everything takes longer and goes
sure.
slow. But outside of the massive update situation, it's usually 24 to 48 hours for on page changes. If you touch off page stuff, if you run a press release or something, then it always takes a month.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Fastest I've ever seen off page work is 3 weeks.
Okay. That
Um,
helps me a lot because almost all my stuff, and that's what I was going to ask. Should, this is going to be a local report, obviously from a GMB, but should I be also doing the on page if the client will let me at the same
yeah,
time?
yeah. So what you're going to find is that the content on their website will impact their local ranking almost as much as their GMB profile.
Okay. Yeah,
So
because
don't,
I noticed that Google is pulling content off the website and adding it to the GMB, which I never
yeah, and
really.
they're looking to make sure you're actually about that keyword. So if your page isn't about, emergency plumbing, then they're not going to want to rank it for emergency plumbing because they'll look bad.
Wow.
So you need to have that website and profile agreement.
Well, this just upgraded my service because now I got to go in and do on-page shit that I never wanted to even touch.
Yeah,
Because you
yeah,
know what it's like, Ted. I don't have to tell you when you go into these people's websites and first of all, they're just apprehensive as hell to let you in and let you do anything. Uh,
yeah. And there might be a case where they don't want you to, and just say, okay, just know that that's doing SEO with one hand tied behind my back. I'll work in the profile, but there are things that you may need to do eventually on the website.
Right.
And you can always compromise with them. You can say, hey, on the website stuff, I'll give you a list and it's on you to do those things.
Okay. Yeah, I could do that.
So yeah, there ought to be a way to work it out, but just make sure that if they don't do the things they're supposed to do, that you hold them accountable for that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a
all
great
right.
idea.
So let's go to your output folder. I believe you put it on your desktop, and there should be some reports in there now. Go ahead and hit the stop button. If it ever gets stuck like that, it just
What?
means one of the web requests got stuck. So you just hit stop, and then you can minimize Cora and go to the reports folder you put on the desktop.
Why did it do it in Opera? Fuck.
Oh, don't worry about it. They're HTML files, and Opera's your default browser.
It's not
So
supposed to be, but Chrome
yeah,
is supposed to be.
so when you change that, it'll show up as Chrome. You don't need to do anything.
Okay.
Um, so the one I want you to open though is the Excel file. All right. And if we can move the spotlight search,
The what?
where is that? Oh, sorry, that was on my screen. Sorry. All right. So this is the roadmap sheet. And as you can see, it starts with phase one there. In row two, there is a list of words. You see that list?
Row 2.
It says floor, floor installation, flooring, flooring installers.
Okay, okay, line number 2. Yeah,
Yep.
I see that.
All right, so those are the variations. Variations are words that Google makes bold in search when you search for the keyword. And they make all those words bold to say, look how relevant the search results are. But it's a two-way street. They're telling us this is the list of words that make your page relevant for this keyword. So anytime a factor name says variations, we mean any combination of those words. So let's see, in row 23, it says variations and H2 tags,
Correct?
and it says add three more. A
Wow.
lot of people just initially will mean add three more H2 tags. Well, you can do that, but it doesn't have to be. You could add three more of those words to an already existing H2 tag. It's
Okay.
about adding the variations in that zone, not necessarily adding more of that zone. But you
Cool.
have that freedom. You can pick which three from that list in row two, and you can decide to do it in one heading or multiple headings. Um,
Awesome.
when a factor says exact matches, then it means exactly the keyword you use to make the report. When factor says leading variations, like in row 21, it says leading variations and H1 tags, that's synonymous with H1 tags that start with a variation. So we want one of those phrases in row two to be at the very beginning of the heading.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll call out a specific variation because Google doesn't treat them all equally. So in row 16, it says variation floor and H2 tags. So if we notice mathematically Google is favoring one of them in a specific zone, we'll call that out specifically. We're going to ignore the colors for a moment. We'll come back to the colors. Let's scroll down to phase 2. All right, so phase 1, we saw the advice was a lot of add 1 more, add 2 more, add 3 more. The numbers were pretty small. In phase 2, the numbers get bigger. And so that's the reason why we tend to get stuck with the algorithm in phase 2 is we have to do a lot more because it's about the overall amount of content you're competing with in phase 2. So usually about halfway through phase 2, you get stuck and your on-page tuning doesn't work anymore. And that's when we want to switch to phases 3 and 4. When you look at phase 3, you see, number of backlinks, add 2,489 more. Number of do follow backlinks, add 2,542. Insane numbers. Don't do that. Don't even bother. The only thing I ever want you to address in phase 3 is number of referring domains.
Oh, shit. Really?
Yep. And the crazy thing is, about 80% of the time, for keywords that clients will typically ask you to do SEO for, there are going to be these 2-word and 3-word phrases like hardwood floor installation. And you're going to be short between 0 and 500 referring domains.
Wow.
And it turns out that 500 referring domains is about what you get from one white hat press release. Not
Okay.
8, not 12, just one press release. So your whole off-page strategy for this page is to do one press release about hardwood floor installation and link to the page you're trying to rank and either use the exact match for the anchor text or use one of the very closely related variations.
Right.
And that's it. That's your whole off-page strategy. And then we want to look at phase 4 for the diversity, and there are different types of diversity. Not all are listed here, but you may need entity diversity, you may need variation diversity, you may need LSI diversity, or you may need factor diversity. And so I'm going to briefly talk about all of those and how to tune for them.
Okay.
So in the bottom left, there are a couple arrows to scroll the sheets at the bottom. If you can scroll over to the variation sheet, it's in the bottom left corner are the sheet arrows. All the way in the bottom left corner.
Right here?
Yeah, yeah. And so you click those and they'll scroll all the reports.
Didn't want to. There we go.
There you go. And we want the variations one. All right. So up at the top in the headings here, we have the list of all those variations that Google made bold in search. And we need diversity in those variations. And so we can see for your website that you don't use flooring installers. So whenever you're adding diversity of a factor, you're looking for zeros and trying to turn the zeros into non-zeros. So we would scroll horizontally on this, find all the variations you have zeros of, and we would make them one or more on our page.
I see.
Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, let's click on the entity sheet that's 2 sheets over. All right. So there's a lot of technical data on this report. I want you to ignore most of it. Entities are nouns that Google's AI contextually understands. And there are public databases of all these entities. And most of the data you're seeing on the screen are the IDs of the entities in those public databases. A good way to think about an entity is any term that would have a Wikipedia page is an entity. And the way that Google is using entities is they're trying to distinguish between a page that mentions apple pie versus a page that's about apple pie. And a page that mentions apple pie, it might be a song or a book or a movie, but a page about apple pie is going to talk about pie pans and temperature and cook time and crust and oven mitts and cinnamon.
Right.
When you have collections of related entities, they form topics. And so Google is using these entities to calculate a topical relevance score for your target keyword. So it can determine if page A is more about hardwood floor installation than page B based on the supporting entities. And so the way we use this data is we would go down this list and we would highlight all the ones that are apple pie words for our target keyword that are topically relevant. And we'd skip the rest because the ones that aren't topically relevant can hurt your page, but the ones that are topically relevant can boost your page.
I
A
see.
lot of SEOs feel tempted to copy the whole list and put it in their page, and that's usually a mistake.
Yeah. Now I can see, just going through these keywords, the first 31, there's only a few that are relevant.
Yeah, and you want to be very picky. And then if you scroll this sheet to the right and look at the other columns of data, there will be a column of data that shows you your page. So one more column. There it is. So column K has your website's measurement in it. So when you highlight the rows with the relevant entities, then you would come over to column K and find the ones with zeros. And again, we're going to make the zeros not be zeros. Then we're adding entity diversity.
I see. That works.
All right, let's click on LSI keywords. It's the next one over. Same thing. A lot of the groups, like if you went to Signals Lab and you mentioned LSI keywords, people would jump all over you. They'd say it's a scam, you're a charlatan, you're being tricked, and those same people who would say all that negative stuff, they'll also praise entities in the same breath. But what they don't realize is that entities and LSI keywords, they measure the exact same thing. They have the same empirical unit of measure. They both measure words that co-occur on pages that rank well. And you use them exactly the same way. You're going to go through column A there. You're going to think about the apple pie example. You're going to highlight the rows and you're going to add the ones that are zeros to your page to get LSI diversity. And when you go through that apple pie exercise with LSI keywords and with entities, they largely produce the exact same list. You get to the same place using them the same way.
Okay, so let me ask you a quick question before again, it's overwhelming. But my question is, let's say that I go through here and I highlight all the LSI words that I think are relevant. Am I going back to the content on the page
Yep.
that's and
And
and introducing these LSI words into that content?
yes.
So I could take chat and add these keywords or put the content in and add these keywords and say rewrite it for this
Yeah, you'd want to check the work of the AI because AI isn't particularly good at that yet.
Okay.
But as long as you like its end result and it's using the words, then yeah.
Presentation, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Um,
I interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, good question. And so LSI keywords and entities, you use them exactly the same way. Entities are only available in about a dozen languages. So if you pick up a client in Vietnam, you can't use the entity tools. So all you get are the LSI. So, and all the people that are naysayers about LSI, you bring up the Vietnam problem, they got nothing for you.
Right.
So it's like, thank goodness you have LSI keywords because otherwise you'd have nothing.
So
Um,
how many of these zeros would you turn into ones
it,
first round? I mean, going through
if
your
they are obviously topically relevant for the target keyword, I would use all of those obviously relevant ones. I would not skip them.
don't
But if they are all arguably off topic, I would skip those. Or if it's hard to tell, I would skip those. And so you want the ones that are relevant for the keyword. So hardwood floor installation. You will see entities in LSI for locations. Those are ones you're skipping. You'll have location pages for locations. We want relevance with the keyword.
correct. So
Um,
but I'm saying let's say there's a bunch of LSI that are relevant. Quantity wise, how many would you do at one time, or would you do them all?
I would probably do them all, but there is an argument for doing the work in small bites. If you change too much of the page all at once, you can trigger what's known as a Google dance, and that's
Yeah.
Google's, throwing up its hand saying, "You changed so much, I don't know if you should rank for anything you rank for."
Well, at
And
that
so
point, I would, if I got the Google Dance and got knocked down out of ranking, I would just go in and do as much as possible.
yeah, and so seasoned SEOs, we're used to that because we know that you'll come back to where you were or better. But clients don't know that, and that's when they call you and they start screaming, "What the hell did you just do?" And you terrify a client with a Google dance. And typically, the way you avoid it is you take small bites and you do iterations.
Over on the next column where it says deficit.
Yep, that's the deficit against the average. So
Okay. Because
Um,
he doesn't do laminate floors, but it says it's deficit of 3.67.
yeah,
And
because his
mine,
competitors do.
yeah, because the competitors do. Well, it's a different type of flooring altogether.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And you'll see that, and it totally relies on your understanding of the industry and your understanding of the client. And that's why I can't tell you which words to use because I don't know this industry and I don't know
right.
your client.
Exactly.
And there's no easy button. Like people try to game the scores, but you have to think. You have to use your brain.
Yeah. Well, it's just common sense. That's all it
Yep.
is.
All right, so let's use those arrows in the bottom left and scroll the sheets all the way to the end. Let's go to the other end. Yeah.
Oh, it's not. I don't know why it's not going.
Oh,
Like,
started going. Yeah, you just gotta. Yeah,
like my fat fingers. Or maybe I can use the mouse.
yeah. Mouse will help. All
Landmarks.
right. So let's click on the basic off-page report.
Off page report.
Yeah, basic off-page. It's yeah, right there. All right. So the only thing I want you to look at on this report is referring domains. And so we can see in the top 10 there kind of what people are working with and what what I see there is one press release is going to put you way over the top. So your whole off-page strategy here is one press release for this site, and then you're killing it.
So would you do step one and two and go ahead and do a press release?
Yeah, oftentimes I'll do the press release first because we know it takes 3 or 4 weeks for Google to process
Oh,
it.
okay.
And so
Yeah,
I'll want to get the clock started on that.
that makes sense.
But yeah, so we can, look here at the top 10 for referring domains and, we can get an idea of what we need to break in. And so if it's between 0 and 500, then we know one press release is all we need for that kind of deficit.
So now
If
let me throw a question at you. You know that press releases, eventually those referring domains drop off, they expire.
Yeah, 12 to 18 months typically.
So do we have to do it again, or is Google going to hold us there in the same ranking or not?
Yeah, you'll need to do it again. And there are tricks like some people will link build to the press release URLs, and that kind of keeps them in the game a little bit longer, but you're still looking at every couple of years having to redo it.
Okay.
Um, But typically, as you start to improve the ranking and improve the website, you tend to grow organically at the same time too. So eventually, it fades out. Uh, let's let's click on the service areas sheet. So most local businesses will have a service radius. They say we serve customers within
Right.
15 miles of our business. If you scroll to the right a little bit, you'll see a distance column. And so when they have a 15-mile radius, you just go to distance in miles, you go down to about their radius, and that tells you which of those towns are within that radius. So if it's 15 or less, it's within the radius. And you can see in column E there all of the townships and municipalities. And then you can verify that they have locations for all the towns within their radius.
So that would be lines 1 through 33.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so at that point, you can see that, oh, they skipped all the small towns. They're not appearing in searches for all these places within their service radius. So you'd want to make location pages for all those municipalities. And
So you'd
nearly,
make an individual page for every city
yeah,
and
yeah.
refer to Wikipedia and the ID codes and all that.
Well, I would just make sure that in the service areas that the business supports, that you have a location. And then what you do is you talk about on the location pages what services you offer in those areas. So you would link to your service pages that are agnostic of the location. So you have a home page that's largely about the brand and main keyword. Then you have service pages that are largely about all the different services they offer. Then you have locations that are about all the areas served. And then those location pages will link to the service pages, and everything links to the home page.
Yeah.
And that's how you're getting that geo relevancy and the relevancy for the services offered.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah.
Now, what's great is when your location pages, you throw on an accordion at the bottom about things that are in that service area. So click on the attractions. These are all of the attractions within that radius that you can talk about on those location pages.
Wow.
And not only that, if you go back to the output folder, if you click on your file explorer icon, should pull up your output folder again. Yeah, the yellow folder. and expand the file name column so you can see the full file names. It's the line by the date modified up at the top. And yeah, just expand the column like it's a spreadsheet. So if you go in between the column and date modified, you'll get there you go. Now you can expand it. All right, let's click on, let's click on the one called attractions. It'll open in Opera, but it doesn't matter. It's just an HTML file. So with this, you can make a tab box or an accordion where you can actually list out all of these attractions, and they're sorted by distance, so you could actually cut and paste them within a radius. You just
And
scroll
create
down.
on each one of those
Yeah, on the location pages.
location pages.
Yeah, because all of these, the stars and number of reviews actually is a link to the map reviews, and the distance is actually a link to the driving directions, and the view and maps is actually a link to the maps. And right above the view and maps, you have the address and you have the entities of the names of these landmarks. And so you have entities and addresses and geolocation signals and links into maps about georelevancy. So when you talk about things in your service areas in this way, like Google really understands the georelevance of your service area.
Wow. So
And so
I have a page that that I made, which is I think I called it areas served. So you're saying that I need to change that
yeah,
to
you would want location pages instead of confusing all of them into one area served. You would want individual location pages that would be towns and perhaps even neighborhoods within.
okay. That right there is what's going to be the most time consuming,
Yep.
making all those fucking
Yeah, and maybe the client doesn't want to do it, then it's like, okay, but the best practice today is service pages, location pages, and a brand and primary keyword homepage.
right. I've got
Um,
that down. I combined my locations all on one area served. So
and
that I
sometimes that's what you got to do, in which case you just do the attractions by a radius and you put that on that page. So
well,
however
see,
the client will let you
I
do it.
I kind of did a combination of both. I went into Wikipedia and grabbed and Google and grabbed some of this stuff, and but it's a whole page of all the different locations, and then what's at those locations, and combined them. But so actually, all I got to do is just copy and paste, just take them, make each one a page,
Yep.
and then add this. This is cool.
All right, so let's go back to Excel.
How can I grab this? Let's say it was
You can
Campbell
open
Green.
these, you can open the file in an HTML editor and you
Oh,
can
okay.
just copy and paste the HTML.
Okay, cool. That's easy enough. So
Um,
go back to where?
Excel. All right, and let's go to the local report sheet. These are all the factors that are specific to the Google Business Profile. All right. And what we found is that uh, the completeness of your profile is a factor. Factor diversity in the Google Business Profile is a very strong factor. And so the red ones are all factors you're being beat on by competitors. So
Oh,
we want you to consider the red ones, and if they're applicable for the client, to enable them for the client. And so if they have an accessible entry, then the problem is if they don't check it, then anyone who says hardwood floor installation with accessible entry, you don't appear in those searches.
I see.
Similarly, if you have a client that's a restaurant and they offer, quick lunches, if they don't set the switch for quick bite, whenever somebody says quick lunch near me, they're not in those searches.
Wow.
If you have a client that's a bar and they have a karaoke night and you don't set the switch for karaoke, they won't appear in the karaoke searches. All those switches ultimately equal searches you do or don't appear in. And to put it into context, I was going to a wedding in Portland and my wife wanted coffee. So I was like, sure, pull up Google Maps. Let's go to a Starbucks and find one with a drive-through. And we pull off the interstate, we navigate to it, and sure enough, when we get there, no drive-through. The Starbucks location lied on their profile about having a drive-through. And I was thinking, why would they do that? Well, they're so close to the interstate, if they uncheck the drive-through, probably kills 80% of the people that walk through their door.
Yeah, I can believe that.
And
Hey,
so,
down the list on 25 says map photo count. Is
yep,
that the amount of photos that are on the
yeah,
GMB?
yep.
Wow.
And
I,
so
I,
you'll need strategy for rating and reviews and photos, but don't neglect the switches and don't neglect the types and subtypes, which are ultimately the categories you're assigning for the business.
right.
Because
Wow.
all,
That's
yeah,
a that's a huge.
and so this will give you the info on how you're being beat by those switches and those settings.
And you were saying typically with the GMBs that it's within 24 hours, huh? You see the
It
difference?
can be that fast. It can
Wow.
be. But you have to be careful with GMBs. If you edit too much, you can get it in a state where you have to prove that the business is legitimate. So, you,
Re-verify.
yeah, yeah. So proceed with caution, but just note that these settings matter.
So maybe take a week or so to go through this instead of all one shot.
Yeah, yeah. Just, be cautious and just note that if one of the factors is saying, hey, you should put a keyword in the business name, well, maybe you don't do that because it's a step too far.
No, there's three things that will get you um, dropped out, suspended, and for re-verification, and that's changing the name of the business, the phone number, and the address. You do
Yep.
one of those three, and you're fucked.
Yep. So, just consider everything, but weigh it properly.
Yeah.
All right. So let's scroll the reports back to the shared data report. I want to talk about factor diversity for a moment. All right, so we'll have to scroll to the right. I think we passed it. It's called shared data. There it is. All right, so what we have here, can you close the accessibility pane on the far right? There's a little X to close it. All right, so what we have here are well, what this is every time you run Cora is going to anonymously share information about how these factors perform. It'll send it to the the server. And then with every report you run, we pull a snapshot of that data back into Cora so you know how these factors perform. And so that second factor on the list up there in row 4, the number of maps factors used, that's a diversity factor for how many of the business profile factors you're using. So it wants diversity in your profile. And we've been seeing that specific one climbing for map searches. So we know that it's a growing concern. It's more important than we previously thought. Um, in this data, we know about, how do people tune for it on page 1? What percentage of the time? Is it a strong factor? And this data is across thousands of different keywords. But the part we really want to look at, if you scroll to the right, there will be a column. It's column I. And if you start scrolling down, looking at column I, you'll start to see red zeros. All right. Those red zeros, those are factors you're not using. So whenever you see in phase 4, it says you need to add more of the top 50 shared factors used, that's the top 50 from this list. If it says you need to add more of the top 200 shared factors used, that's the top 200 of this list. And if it says you need to add more to the number of factors used, that's all factors on this list. And so all you're doing is finding red zeros and fixing those factors on the website or in the profile. And nobody said you have to do the hard ones. You can totally cherry pick the list for things that are easy that you know how to do.
The factors is the column C, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I can pick any of those.
Yep. So if you need to add 50 factors more to your factor diversity, you're looking for 50 zeros that you can turn into non-zeros. And any of them that look too hard or too much of a pain, skip. Just keep going down the list until you find ones you can handle.
You're saying that that's in step 4 or 5?
Yeah, that's in phase 4. Those will be listed there. And this is how you're going to address those deficits. You're going to eliminate the zeros.
So this is on page on the website, not anything to do with the GMB.
It'll be both on this list. Some of the factors will be GMB, some will be on page. If the factor name says maps, it's in the GMB.
Oh, okay. I was just looking at that first red one. It says exact match in the HTML tag.
Yeah. But if you look at row 67, map switch verified enabled, that's in the profile.
Okay.
That means you had a verified listing.
Oh, okay, correct.
All right. So let's go back to the roadmap because I want to end at the roadmap. I want to bring it all back to the most important part.
Where is it at?
So we scroll back to the left, click on the roadmap. And so I want you to spend 95% of your time in this roadmap and primarily in phases 1 through 5 for local. So 1 and 2 is your on-page tuning, 3 and 4 is your factor diversity, and 5 is your business profile.
So I would run a press release right away for 3.
Yep, and that's it, just 1 and done. Not
just
8,
include.
Make it about hardware floor installation. Have a link to the page you're trying to rank. Use hardware floor installation as the anchor text. Just one link. A bunch of the services, they'll say you need the most expensive package because that way we get you into Yahoo Finance and AP Newswire, and we'll put in map embeds and we'll do all these, stacks, and you don't need all that. Don't let them talk you into the most expensive one. That's overkill.
Right.
Just tell them I'm trying to solve a number, and that number is these referring domains, and so I need the package that addresses that deficit. Um, and so yeah, don't get suckered into the most expensive press releases because it's not about getting traffic from the press release. We don't really need human beings. We don't even want the press releases to rank.
Right.
So if your competition finds them, they're going to go, yeah, press release is a good idea. And that's the last thing you want. So it's better if they don't even rank.
Right.
You do want the press release to be relevant. So you want it to be about your keyword. You want your link anchor to be relevant too. But you don't want it to be SEO optimized. You don't want to compete with it.
Right. So phase 4, this is where you were saying in the top 200 factors, the list that we're
Yeah.
looking at.
That shared data sheet is the, row 53, row 54, row 55 is the shared data sheet. Arguably, row 55 is that local report that's only the maps factors. And then the variations, row 56 will be the variation sheet. So if you need diversity and variations, you go to the variation sheet. If the next report you run says you need, more distinct entities, then you'd go to the entity sheet. But largely, you're spending most of your time trying to fix the deficits on this page. And
Okay.
you see how in column G, there's a bunch of not dones?
Yeah.
If you click into one of those, it'll turn into a menu, and then you can select a different designation. So click into one.
What do you mean click into
Click
one?
not done, any one of them. Just
In
click
any phase?
uh, in the word not done itself.
I know, but any phase?
Yeah, any of them. So you just click one,
Yep.
and to the right of it, there's a little arrow. You might have to scroll a little to see it. All right. And if you use the arrow, you can change the designation. So you can put it in progress or done.
Okay. It's just a note for myself.
Yeah, go ahead and change one so you see what it does. You can always change it back.
Okay.
So it'll change it, and that way you can save your progress and resume where you left off.
Wow, Ted, you thought of everything.
I try to.
Now all we need is another program to come in and here, read the report, and go into the website, log in, and do it for us.
Yeah, there are so many people who have that idea. That idea has like the maximum amount of spontaneous genesis. Everybody's like, I could turn this into an easy button. And I'm like, that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because there are parts in this that require you to think. So it's not as easy as you would imagine.
Right. I agree with you. There is thought
Yeah.
process that goes into this.
There's no such thing as an easy button, but there's absolutely is such a thing as advantage. And so the advantage is real, and that's why I want you to become an expert of phases 1 through 4 plus 5 for the profile. Because everything we do, all the really cool SEO shenanigans where we're, taking a new website to #1 in Google in 3 weeks, that's all phases 1 through 4. That's how we do that.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's important to learn to get unstuck because it's the most common SEO problem. And so few SEOs know how to address that.
So what's the green?
All right, so the colors. So yellow is considered easy, and we consider it easy if you can open up the content management system, edit the post, and hit publish. If it's that straightforward to address, it's easy. If it's not yellow, then it means it requires web development, server configuration, off-page SEO, or it's overly academic and it's going to make you think, and that's going to slow you down. All right, so the font color is the next thing, and the font color tells us about the shared data. So the green ones are broadly applicable just about anywhere you go. Any keyword you do, those green ones are probably going to show up as a strong correlating factor. So those are strong factors for everyone in every keyword. The black ones, like in row 43, where it says variation flooring in the HTML tag, that only correlated for this report. You can't go to Seattle Plumber and use that factor. It
Right.
won't work. It's not portable. So that's only for this report. The red ones, to understand those, you have to imagine this report without the red ones. And imagine you're a seasoned Cora user and you look at this report and you say, you know, I should be seeing some things here that I'm just not seeing. The red ones are the factors that should be here but aren't. And that's a weird concept, I know. Why wouldn't they be here? Well, there's a number of reasons. It largely is because the factors didn't correlate with rank position. But some of the reasons that can happen is your competitor's SEO software didn't recommend doing that. Or tuning for those factors is hard, so your competitors don't like to do it. Or your competitors have an overly simplistic model of SEO, so they only tune the hot zones and backlinks and they don't do all these other things. And my favorite reason is when you find a keyword where your SEO competitors don't exist. You're all alone in the keyword.
Wow.
And so those things can happen. So when your keyword goes all red, it largely tells you that you have either very unsophisticated competitors or you don't have a lot of SEOs in this keyword. There's not a lot of SEO competition happening. But conversely, when the roadmap goes all green, it means that you have very sophisticated competitors and a ton of competition because they're competing on everything.
Wow.
And so we know that when it goes all green, you can't just win the keyword and walk away because you'll
Right.
come back 6 weeks later and they will have taken it back. And so when it goes all green, you know to tell the client, hey, we can work on winning this, but you're going to have to maintain it. It's going to be an ongoing investment to keep that top ranking. But when it's all red, yeah, you can probably win it and come back 6 months later and still have it. Maybe you're knocked down to 2 or something. So the colors, most people get it wrong. They think it's a priority. It's not. It's telling you about the nature of the competitive landscape you're
So
in.
unlike line 45, it says exact matches in sentences. That's throughout the whole on-page website. That's not,
Yep.
and you just need to add 2 more.
Yeah. But it's for the URL you're trying to rank. So Cora
Okay.
is a URL specific tool. It'll give you advice for a specific keyword and a specific page.
Okay. So since we did the home page on that,
Yeah.
that's
So
just
if
for
you
this page.
Yeah, so if you actually wanted to rank an inner page for hardwood floor installation, you'd have to rerun the report for that inner page.
Okay. Yeah, I think I do have a inner page for that website.
Yeah.
But now what about cannibalization? Is that becoming an issue?
Yeah, it can be. And you see that a lot with local SEO. When you uh, run the volatility tool, maybe we should look at that briefly. If you click into Cora
Cora, okay.
and click the volatility button,
Ted, can you give me like 1 minute? I'll be right back.
sure.
Sorry about that.
No worries. All
All right.
right. So if you click into the settings tab, nope. Let's close this. Yeah, click volatility in the settings tab
Yeah.
in volatility. There we go. Let's set the output folder to your reports folder on the desktop so you know where the reports are saved. All right, and then on the left where it says MRV groupings and use X notation, let's check those. And let's put in the domain name of the business.
I have to go back and get that.
No worries. Click volatility and settings. And yeah, we'll put the domain name in there. We'll delete the trailing slash in the beginning part. All right, and then let's go back to the input tab.
Nowhere to click save, huh?
Nope, you just go to the input tab.
Input.
It's right next to the settings tab. Yeah, down a little and to the left.
Okay, right there.
Yep. All right, so now let's put in the keyword, the hardwood floor installation plus the city name. This is going to do a Google web search, so it won't be maps, but it'll identify cannibalization problems if they exist. So it'd be hardwood floor installation Seattle or whatever town they're in. All right, and then you hit the run button. It's the small button on the right. And so what this will do is it's going to run your search 10 times in succession. And from conducting that search 10 times, we can tell you about the volatility of the rank position. And usually this takes about a minute. So all this volatility is happening in about a minute. And so this concept of website rankings, people have this false notion of their rank tracker that what their rank tracker says is what the ranking is, but it's not. It's actually a probability. And so what I like to do is I like to figure out what's the odds bet that we make in Vegas on what somebody else is going to see when they try to search for our website using the keyword. I want to describe those odds. And so this tool tells us about how the rankings can fluctuate and what problems can happen within those volatility issues. All right, so now we see the organic web search results for the keyword. And so we'd scroll down and hopefully we'll see the business here. If you don't rank organically in web search for it, then it'll be pretty difficult. But just know that if you do rank organically for your keyword and city, that's a good indicator that your page is well tuned for local as well. But yeah, let's scroll down, see if we can find the business. There it is. So you
Okay.
do rank. So that's pretty decent for not trying to rank for organic web search. And the thing we're looking for is that green 100%. That's the most important thing you can see here. Because you see how a few rows up, one has 50%.
Right.
That means they appear in 50% of the searches. We call that time
Oh,
sharing.
okay.
It is the worst thing. Anything less than 100% is an indication that your site has technical SEO issues.
Wow.
So doing this and making sure that a new client has green 100% is very good practice. All right, so let's scroll down a bit.
What's that scroll or that graph over to the right in
I'll explain that. There's an infographic at the bottom that explains how to read it. So if
okay.
we scroll to the bottom of this section, we'll go over the infographic. All right, there it is. So in the example in the graphic, the red 50% is the time sharing. So what percentage of searches does the URL appear in? The purple portion is the most common rank position. So of the 10 searches, 40% were number 19. And then we end it with the worst case scenario for managing the expectation. And as you can see from the little chart, the most common rank position is always the dividing line between the upwards and downwards testing. All right.
Yeah.
And then below, we see cannibalization. So any websites that are cannibalizing themselves will appear here. So we'll want to scroll down and see if we see our website. Because if we were cannibalizing, it would be highlighted yellow. And so if we look at one of these, we could see like the one for Texas first floors in the middle there. If you look at the ranking odds, you can see how their time sharing adds to 100%. They're 10% one URL, 90% another. And the one right above that is cannibalization with a home page. So it's 90% home page, 10% inner page. And so this is the easiest way you can diagnose cannibalization. And if cannibalization is happening, it's usually a home page and an inner page. And you have to have a talk with the client and let them know that,
Right.
yeah, you got to kind of move the keyword to the inner page.
So it wasn't showing ours as being cannibalized, right?
Yeah, you'd have to check the whole list.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and then the next section is title variants, where Google is rewriting titles. And so that can impact your rankings sometimes. And then description variants, where Google is rewriting your summaries, is right below that. And so we'll show examples of that when it happens. And typically, the only time we care about title and summary variations is when the rank position fluctuates wildly. So I've seen it go from number 5 to page 5, then we want to get in there and fix it. But if Google is bouncing between, like a last modified date change, that'll go away on its own and you can ignore it. All right. And that's the volatility tool. So if you're worried about cannibalization, this is the best diagnostic tool for identifying that issue.
Wow.
And yeah, I do volatility is step one of every SEO audit I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so in an SEO audit, I will identify their most important keywords, most important pages. I'll run Cora reports for those and volatility reports for those, and I'll talk about the issues I find in both, and I'll kind of summarize the phase 1 through 4 in the audit. And so, I talk about strategy, and so yeah, I totally use Cora and volatility to identify any of the issues and work we'd want to do.
My God. How did you learn all this shit, Ted?
I worked in secrecy for a large online retailer for 20 years. And then one day I went to Black Hat World and I showed people my data. And people in Black Hat World went, "Oh my God, what tool did this?" And then I was like, maybe I'm onto something here.
Developed
And
it all on your own. Wow, that is incredible. Just
so,
incredible.
yeah, you're bound to have questions. Just ping me on Skype. If we need to redo the training, if it didn't all stick, let's just do it again. There's no limit on the amount of training. If you want to book training to dive deeper in a specific area or feature set, that's fine. Be sure that you're in the Cora Skype community. You can ask the whole community, "Hey, I got to get 500 words into LI tags. What are some strategies for doing that?" People in the community have found very clever ways to handle, things you might not know how to approach. So it's good to ask questions. And if it's not working out for you, let me know. We can circle back and try to figure out why. If it is working out, I want to know because it makes me feel good. That's why I do all my own
Absolutely.
support.
You always hear the good news. Nobody wants to call you up with good news. They always want to call you up with bad news.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's no limit on the support. So if you need more support, just book a meeting.
All right. I'm I'm fairly confident in saying that this ain't going to be the only time I can call you.
Yeah, no. And most of my clients do. Like eventually you'll have questions, eventually you'll have a tricky one, and you just need another pair of eyes on the report. What would you do with this? That's all fine.
Well, you have certainly cut out. I mean, you're not cut out, but increased my workload here tremendously.
Well, that's only because you're getting used to it. Like what's going to happen here, like if you adopt Cora into your workflow and become a Cora expert, and I see Cora users doing this all the time. Right now, Cora's telling you what to do,
Yeah.
but eventually you learn that so well, you don't need Cora to tell you what to do. So right now, because you're learning Cora is the accelerator and you step on the accelerator to go, once you become an expert at phases 1 through 4, the role actually changes. Cora becomes the brakes. It tells you when to stop because you've already won.
Wow.
And so, yeah, as you learn Cora and master it, it'll switch from being the gas pedal to being the brakes. So you get your most efficient SEO. You don't overinvest in places you don't need to.
That's phenomenal. Really is. Well, we went well over the hour, Ted.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not counting the minutes. It is what it needs to be.
Yeah. Well,
So
I'm going to,
yeah, treat it like an experiment. Find a safe place to prove it works, find a good test case, and treat it like an experiment because honestly, you know, everything I could say, everything everyone in the Skype group could say, all the testimonials in the world, none of it really compares to what you can prove for yourself. And so
I,
that's what I want you to rush into is find a way to test this out for yourself and prove it works.
the roadmap looks, it doesn't look complicated at all, but
Yeah.
running Quora and the reports and understanding them and going through all the different, how long does that typically take to learn?
Not long. I think if you spend most of your time in the roadmap addressing the deficits, that's what you need to do. And you will periodically have to hop over to those other sheets we looked at to figure out what it is you're going to do for those deficits. But really, I want you to spend 90% of your time in that roadmap sheet fixing those differences. Because when you do that, that's when you're going to see your best outcomes.
Well, I'm lazy, so I'll do the easy stuff first
Yeah, by all means. And
and
uh,
see.
just just because Cora said something like, oh, you need to have 3,000 word count more on your page, you can say, you know what? That's a lot of work. We could come back to that one if all else fails.
Yeah.
You set your priorities, and if something looks unreasonable or like the last thing you'd want to try, that's okay. Because all Cora is doing, Cora isn't saying you should do it, Cora isn't saying you must do it. Cora is saying this is how you're different from your higher ranking competitors. And we want you to consider those differences, but you don't have to accept those as,
It's
marching
absolute. Yeah.
orders. Yeah. So definitely use your brain, set your priorities, and treat this opportunity as an experiment to prove it to yourself to get the best evidence an SEO can possibly have. I used this tool and got this result from it. And that's what we want to get to because that is not up for debate. That is something you did yourself.
Yeah. This definitely shows you where your deficits are and what you need to improve on to take out your competition. Um, I'm I know it's going to make a big difference. I'm just hoping like some of my clients like DUI attorney in Houston, you already know right there. That's like DUI in LA, you know.
Yep, yep.
That's going to be a I'm sure there's somebody in Cora that's got another DUI attorney.
Well, and you'll see it in the data. You'll be like, why is this website's measurements to the moon?
Yeah.
And then you might hop over and say in the Cora Skype group, hey, who's working DUI Dallas?
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, you know what? I don't want to up the numbers on you. Can we just do a co-marketing thing where we work together to knock everyone else down?
Yeah,
And
because
people,
I don't care if I'm number two or number one. It doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah, and it beats being in an arms race where you guys keep adding more work against each other endlessly. So if you see someone that looks like they're using Cora, maybe just ask in the Cora group who's working that keyword. Um, and if they're willing to work with you, a co-marketing agreement is much better than an arms race.
this probably doesn't make a difference, but I'm going to bring it up.
Yep.
In the state of Texas, DUI is not a legal term. It is in most other states, but their legal term is DWI. Now, I went into the results on the GMB, his existing GMB, and the number one keyword was DUI attorney. So
Yeah.
I started optimizing for that, not DWI.
Yeah. You have multiple understandings you have to contend with. You have to contend with Google's understanding. Does Google see that as the same topical thing? And they do, by the way, because they'll make it bold in the variations. And then you have to contend with the searcher's understanding. So, how are the human beings going to key it into search? And then, yeah, you have to understand the actual business and what they have to adhere to. And, are there regulations and the language they
Well,
use?
my question is, should I then go back and start, even though I've optimized and I ranked him, I got him in the map pack um, with DUI, but should I go back and start optimizing him for DWI as well?
You'd have to figure out a strategy. I probably would. I wouldn't treat DWI and DUI as different keywords because I think Google is viewing them as synonymous. You could test it with some searches and look what Google is putting bold in web search, and that'll give you the clues as to whether or not Google's treating it like a variation. Um, and if they are, then maybe you want to make some sort of terminology, some sort of footnote. So when it says DUI lawyer, maybe there's some footnote that DWI and DUI are synonyms. And if you have those types of disclosures, maybe you can win both, or maybe
That
there's a strategy.
that's on page though, right? Not
Yeah, yeah. Because you could intermix it, but you don't want to confuse people. But you would potentially want to mention that, we're a DWI lawyer, but maybe you're new in the state, and a DWI lawyer and a DUI lawyer are the same thing.
right.
Um, because yeah, you don't know what the person searching does or doesn't know either.
I noticed when I put in DUI attorney Houston that Google will be underneath it will be it'll try to change you to DWI
Yeah, yeah.
attorney or lawyer or whatever. And so I can see what you're saying about the boldness. I didn't realize that was as important as it is that Google is
Yeah, yeah, because there's the business's understanding, there's the customer's understanding, and there's also Google's understanding. So we have multiple partners in this search ecosystem, and they all don't behave the way we would hope. But it's good to understand them.
yeah. Well, I could spend all day on here, but I'm let you go, and I really appreciate your time, Ted, and
Yeah,
I'm excited to get started with this and see
yeah,
that
let's
that one client. He was already he he called me up, the one we just did the website on. He wants to read. He thinks he's redoing his whole website. It's what needs to so he can rank and They're all crying about not enough phone calls. You know how it is.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
uh,
Let's plan on meeting again in 2 weeks to a month, whenever is good for you, and
all right.
let's circle back and see how it's going.
Yeah, I know I'll have plenty more questions after that.
Okay, yeah,
All right.
well, let's do it.
I appreciate it, man. You have a great day.
All
Thanks
right,
for the help, and I'll see if I can get some more done. I've got several of them I need to run now.
all right. Well, take care, have a good one, and ping me when you have questions.
All right. I
All right,
will, man. Thanks.
take care.